Welcome to Let's Talk, where all we do is talk about anime and manga, and today we're going to be talking about a manhwa that I recently picked up called Superhuman Battleground. I realize that the actual manhwa is called Superhuman Battlefield, and I've been saying Superhuman Battleground. Just know that I mean Superhuman Battlefield, alright? Superhuman Battleground is a manhwa written by Nicolo and illustrated by Plan A about our main protagonist Xiaoman Yup in previous history had saved the world from calamity and destruction. After supposedly sacrificing his own life during this entire ordeal, he returns years into the future where the world had reverted into a peaceful civilization, incredible technological advancements had been made, and his previous adventure work had become a virtual reality esport? While off that story alone, Superhuman Battleground may sound like a complete joke and a generic shit show, but quite frankly, this story itself breaks barriers within the hunter/dungeon crawler genre and kind of flips the genre on its head. Long are the times of regression stories where a main character goes back in time or moves into the future with the goal of fighting off a arbitrary random demon lord a second time, or trying to fix the very crux of society. Superhuman Battleground, from its absolute basis, is about a character that is lazy, only looks to have fun, watches K-dramas, and occasionally finds some diamond-in-the-rough randoms to carry his esports team into glory, while kicking some ass at the same time. And I almost forgot, his entire thing is just making money, so that's also a thing. Now, I'm sure you noticed by now that I didn't mention anything about him being on his own roster, his own esports hunting roster, but rather more about him scouting out talent to be on the roster. And that reason is pretty simple. He's not on the team at all. He's the general manager of the team. And I think that's one of the main selling points of the story. Now, the story, while still being very main character centric, carries a very special charm in seeing the side characters discover hidden talents or uses that they wouldn't have found if they weren't on the main character's team. It's also really fun to watch our main character Xiaoman create interesting and creative tactics that use what would be considered very useless skills into game-changing abilities. A quick example of our main character Xiaoman using his creative mind to create a tactic is when he got a character that was considered useless in the eyes of many other people around him, which had a transportation skill. He turned that character into one of the greatest support duos with another character in his team in the league when no one else saw that particular potential in that character. But don't get it twisted. Our main character still jumps into the fray at times just to beat up on some small fry for, comedic purposes, for example, and does carry his team in some dire situations, even though he doesn't actually need to, but you gotta have him work out the muscles a few times, you know what I mean? And speaking on our main character, he may single-handedly be carrying this story by himself. The most valuable asset to any sort of great story is having a main character that is relatable and enjoyable to watch in the eyes of the audience. And quite frankly, our main character Xiaoman Yup is enjoyable to watch. His antics in just laying around and rewatching K-dramas he hasn't watched in the past decade, and roasting the ever-living shit out of his former teammates, to be quite refreshing and, quite frankly, hilarious at times to read. Of course, for any good manhwa, the art quality has to be pretty good. And, of course, Superhuman Battleground, seeing how I'm suggesting it to you right now, the art is pretty decent. Of course, it's not to the level of like a real-life player or a windbreaker, but it's good enough for it to be pleasing to the eyes for the audience. Now, just to note, the manhwa is still pretty new, and there's only about 55 chapters, so you may want to wait a little bit for the chapters to pick up, so you can kind of just binge read everything once it reaches like 100 chapters or something. It also updates like every 3 weeks, and it's kind of inconsistent, so if you don't want to wait that long, you might as well just wait now and read it all later, to be honest. Now, the only extreme concern I have is that they seem to be teasing the possibility of bringing back the whole dungeon crawler, like the traditional version of it, back into the story. And I honestly don't think that's a good idea. Now, of course, the whole issue here is that if they do go hard on this entire dungeon crawling concept, it's gonna fuck up everything they've been working so hard to create thus far and fall back into the hunter regression trap, which quite frankly every single action manhwa is kind of falling into lately. Now, hopefully they don't go too hard on this idea and maybe turn it into a gag within the story, because, you know, that's how they've been kind of doing things lately. But, you know, I'm just gonna try to keep an eye on this and keep you updated if something drastic happens in the story. Well, with all of that being said, I have to say that Superhuman Battleground has the potential to be one of the best action manhwa out there, or at least the most unique one out there. And honestly, I'm looking forward to reading more in the future, and I guess I'll see you in the next one.